If there is a silver lining for not allowing folks to get into the water along Mississippi's coastline, it may be that more folks will discover the hidden gems that they wouldn't have even tried to seek out before. Come on, I'll show you. The ABC believes the guy that was making moonshine in this still had been doing it for decades. In fact, the head of the ABC ran across this same guy for the same thing, making moonshine back in the late 80s. This is one of the staging areas for MDOT here in central Mississippi in the metro area. As you can see here, they've got materials stockpiled. This is something that they call asphalt slag. I'll give you a closer look of what it looks like. It's basically ground up pieces of the interstate, and this is used to provide traction. It's kind of watching over our shoulders as they saw the numbers coming in, watching the WLBT website there and that interactive map. Everyone was asking and saying, oh yeah, it looks good. And then all of a sudden, when the race was called, everyone started screaming in this room. I saw those sophisticated graphics. Mine not nearly as sophisticated, but for the purposes of today, it will work. This red area will be what we're talking about with the forecast cone. And the director says that this eastern side is often called the dirty side of a tropical storm or a tropical system. And that's not the side you want to be on traditionally, because that's where all the rain will be dumped, to the eastern side of the storm. This group back here behind me, many of them not from Mississippi, but traveling here today because of this Confederate monument that is at the circle here at the Ole Miss campus. A few faint sounds of the song Dixie as the Mississippi Stands protesters crossed onto campus Saturday afternoon. Everyone has to first go through metal detectors before entering the circle where the Confederate monument is located. Once through security, the chants picked up, with a sidewalk and barricades separating the protesters and counter-protesters.
Listen to your teachers, you might learn some history.
Take it down! Take it down!
Billy Sessions is a member of Confederate 901 and the Highwaymen. He explained why they traveled from out of state to protest.
We come here to stand for this history and this heritage, the state flag of Mississippi, and the values of Ole Miss.
Others in the group echoed that they want those monuments to stay put.
And we're here to let them know, we want to save our history. Those are one-of-a-kind art pieces.
Meanwhile, the counter-protesters argue it's time for it to come down.
It doesn't reflect my heritage, and it doesn't reflect anything that I believe, so I want the statue down.
This is our time to get rid of things like this. It would have, I think that we are the strongest black people to even consider coming to this school, because I have my mom, my grandma, my father calling me right now, telling me to go home.
University police say the planning is what helped this all go down with little trouble and no acts of violence.
It went flawless. We had one situation where we had to make an arrest for someone who failed to comply with the directions that we were giving them, but that was the only reported incident.
On the Ole Miss campus, Courtney Ann Jackson, 3 on your side. Wanted to continue to push for more transparency today. Here's what happened. The College Board is standing by its latest statement and timeline regarding the Ole Miss Chancellor search released earlier this week, but they aren't talking about it. The statement says the board followed its policies and bylaws throughout the search process. We waited the 2.5 hours of the executive session for the board president, Hal Parker, who then tried to slip out the back door. But this is all he'd say once we caught up with him around the other side of the building.
I have no comment. No comment.
Dr. Glenn Boyce is the former IHL commissioner, and the process of hiring him was further questioned because he was paid $87,000 by a university foundation as a part of the early search process. He later was hired as chancellor despite not applying for the job. In hindsight, should that process be more transparent?
Well, I would tell you I'm not going to comment on that because the board runs its process, okay? I was simply asked to come in for a meeting and talk about the position.
Students and faculty members continue to protest what they believe was the board circumventing the process to name Boyce, some even calling on the board to be dissolved.
I'm not sure that everybody understands the College Board, okay, IHL. I think part of this is just that. Part of it is people need to understand IHL, and they need to understand the responsibilities and the challenges to go. And so I don't have any comments on that beyond that right now.
While Boyce admits this isn't the way he would have wanted to start the job, he plans to get out there and get visible.
My efforts will be geared toward meeting people, talking with people, and having relationships with people.
Years of service gave Senator Cochran many occasions to be received with honors. This final time earned by a life well lived. This service, a more personal account of Cochran, his children also participating in the final farewell.
I fought the good fight. I finished the race. I've kept the faith.
Much of that race for Cochran was miles from Mississippi in D.C., his bipartisan work shining through as colleague and friend Democrat Patrick Leahy traveled to share his memories, both comical.
Thad was a senator's senator. He even looked the part right out of central casting, all that distinguished white hair. Now, I gotta confess, I envied all that hair.
And sentimental.
And I had tears when he turned to me and he said that he and I quote him, have fought side by side with each other, sometimes face to face against each other, but always with friendship and respect.
And Republican Senator Richard Shelby.
I believe that I'm a better person because I knew Thad Cochran.
Cochran invested time and interest in his friends.
I was sworn in to be ambassador. He came to the Secretary of State's office to be there with me, and when I went before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he came over and spoke on my behalf. He didn't have to do either one of those. He somehow did everything.
Again, beyond party lines, the Senate chaplain described Cochran as a man of faith and quoted the words of Shakespeare.
Life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him, but nature could stand up and say to all the world, this was a man.
All of us will miss our dear friend very, very much.
All of these trailers for the cast and crew of the film Breaking News in Yuba County would be in Louisiana right now if it weren't for a bill that passed during this year's legislative session. It allows for 25% tax rebates for non-resident cast and crews on films. Breaking News in Yuba County will tell the story of a housewife whose husband has a heart attack when she walks in on him with another woman. She buries him and pretends he's been kidnapped.
Comedy of errors ensues after that.
This film features big names like Oscar winner Allison Janney. Before the incentives were brought back to life, they were scheduled to shoot in Baton Rouge. It's being directed by Mississippi native Tate Taylor, who's planning to keep making films here.
There's an incentive in a state, there's a chicken and the egg situation. At some point, crew has to keep coming in and staying in hotels, but they can't start planting their roots, like say in Natchez, if movies aren't going to keep being filmed here.
We were able to come in even under the budget, so now, Mississippi offers a lot as far as filmmakers and locations and ease of shooting.
And that's part of the goal for Taylor and producer John Norris. They have plans for a soundstage to be built in Natchez and want to continue creating a base of resources that will further drive down cost and attract future projects.
We do $25 to $30 million worth of business in Mississippi a year now. We're hoping to grow that to $100 million within 2 or 3 years, and then beyond that, we'll see.
Part of the incentives include a commitment to hiring at least 20% locals and training them.
Whole life I thought I wouldn't be able to come back here, and now it's a realistic possibility that people that leave here and go to school can come back and have a job to do,
To stay where I live and don't have to worry about going somewhere else or worry about, okay, I need to move. I can just stay where I am and know that I can work.
And our crew and actors just keep falling in love with it.
In Natchez, Courtney Ann Jackson, 3 on your side.